Cool. We're live. Hello. I forgot my microphone's like all the way over here. It's not convenient to have it right here for regular computer use. Welcome. Good evening, everyone. Happy Monday. Memorial. Happy belated Memorial Day to the people who served. Today we're going to talk about family annihilators. Before we talk about family annihilators, we need to talk about DDG because I've seen something today. I thought this was today, but apparently it's from a while ago. Well, let me play it first. Then we can talk about it because I thought DDG said he doesn't like when. Well, let's just play it. Let's do that. But good evening, chat. Sure. Naya, Chrissy, DeAndre, Mistress Khalidra, CB, Lola Bunny, Taurus's Love Luxury. It's like that song. Tanika, Patricia. I don't know how it goes, but I do know it's like that. And Alicia, welcome. So here is the evidence. Let's look at the evidence. Now, I'm going to put this image on screen. And if you've seen it in the comments, you don't have to spoil it, but just let me know if you've already seen it based on the image that's on the screen now. Also, be sure to leave a like on your way in. It helps the algorithm. Oh, I also have my comically large wine glass today. The one that's as big as my head. And that's saying something. That's saying something. So, no one has put any guesses in the comments, so we can watch it together and we can all discover together. This is the behind the scenes of NLE Choppa's new movie. This is no longer new. Nightmare on Cottonwood. This is DDG and Sukiana's scene.
And action.
Damn it, ass fat.
Oh my! Somebody just smacked my ass.
That was
That was perfect.
That was the one.
That was perfect.
A lot of ha-has and hee-hees, a lot of kikis. Let's watch it back one more time. Maybe you guys didn't see it. Again, yes, NLE, I think he made the movie already. It was definitely Tubi. It was definitely Tubi. That was the vibe I got. Not even Zeus. I would put Zeus above Tubi. Zeus, I feel like, has quality. Zeus, the issue with Zeus, I don't think is quality. I think the issue with Zeus, this isn't like supposed to be a stream about Zeus or Tubi, but it's turned into that. Zeus, I believe, has quality based on what I've seen. Let me be clear. I don't watch Zeus at all. I have only seen clips on TikTok and or YouTube. I don't watch Zeus at all. But I think Krishan and Blueface's show was on there. When I looked at it, it looked like it was production quality. The issue with Zeus is not production quality. The issue with Zeus is the quality of the shows. It's like watching Jerry Springer, Maury. It's like watching those trashy shows. And that's all Zeus Network is. I've not seen any Zeus Network show that is not like that. Tubi, it looks like people shot it on their iPhone in their backyard. People who don't know how to act, both literally and as like an actor, don't know how to act. People who don't know how to film. People who don't know how to cut between scenes. It's taking too long. They don't know how to angle cameras. They don't know how to do lighting. Tubi is ghetto. Tubi is just very ghetto. I don't know what else to call it. So this is not giving Zeus to me. Not even giving Zeus. It's giving Tubi. Let's watch it one more time and then we can discuss.
And action.
Damn it, ass.
Let me rewind this part. This is DDG Holly Bailey's boyfriend, or I don't know if they're married, but they do have a child, so it's her something. But yeah.
Damn it, ass fat.
Oh my! Somebody just smacked my ass.
That was
That was perfect.
By the way, do you see why I called it a Tubi movie? Like, why she just looking around for 5 seconds and then cut? Why? They're just sitting there staring before, like, it's unprofessional. Look at the scene. It I'm not feeling it. I'm not feeling it. But DDG decided to slap her butt. I saw this today. I thought this was recent, but once I went back and checked the timestamp, it was from, let me see, November 1st, 2023. And I think this was actually in October that this happened. And that was interesting because if you guys remember, let's see, earlier that year, I happened to have this news article unrelated to what we just watched, although it does talk about DDG, who was in the thing that we just watched, but it's unrelated, I promise. DDG not happy with Halle Bailey holding hands with Little Mermaid co-star or on-screen kisses. Quote, why is y'all holding hands in the photo? You know I'm insecure, DDG raps on his new song, Famous, seemingly taking issue with Halle Bailey's interactions with her Little Mermaid co-star Jonah Hauer-King. DDG has released a new project called Maybe It's Me, and the tape single, Famous, has some verses of the rapper seemingly opening up about his insecurities in his relationship with Halle Bailey. The project was released on Friday, and the 25-year-old wasted no time getting personal with his fans. In the chorus, DDG appears to claim he hated falling in love and only asked for Halle Bailey to, quote, to do the basic-ish, unquote. And the, quote, hardest thing I did was fall in love with a famous B word. So he says his B word, he regrets falling in love with her, and that's hard. Well, he doesn't say he regrets it. He just says it was hard falling in love with his famous B word. And he doesn't like seeing her hold hand and kiss her co-star. Let's see. Quote, I'm trying to figure out what we gonna do, how we gonna get to the top. Filming a movie, now you kissing dudes. You know I love you a lot. I don't give a F if that ish for promo. I don't want to see this ish no mo. Now let's stop and praise amongst the Drake and Kendrick Lamar beef that we just recently covered. Hope you guys saw that video. Let's just pause and praise the lyricism. Too many rapper these days, mumble rap or something, I don't know, whatever old heads say. But DDG is enunciating. He said, because y'all didn't hear me, so let me read it back. He said, I'm trying to figure out what we gonna do, how we gonna get to the top. Filming a movie, now you kissing dudes. You know I love you a lot. Let's pause. Do top and lot rhyme? Let's ask that question first. Don't answer the question. It doesn't matter because they sound close enough is the answer. I don't give a F if that ish for promo. I don't want to see this ish no more. He did not say no more. He said no more. So that is what he rapped. That is what he rapped. Why is y'all holding hands in the photo? You know I'm insecure. That's a no. Do I have a, like, I need a sound. I need a soundboard where I can be like fire. Great. Love it. I do have this. I feel like I can work with that. I feel like I can work with that. Why is y'all holding hands in the photo? You know I'm insecure. That's a no. I keep coming back. Want to leave you, but I'm too attached. Oh, I clicked the wrong button. The wow is right below the applause. So apologies. I did not mean to applaud that at all. At all. She was such a very good friend to me. I looked at her and I thought, you have so much weight on your shoulders, so much pressure, and you're carrying this film and carrying it with such grace that I need to try and aspire to that. So anytime I was feeling like a bit daunted, I looked up to her and she was being seamlessly effortless. Now, at first I was like, wait, DDG said this? No, he did not. This was actually Holly Bailey's co-star who said that she did an amazing job, great to work with, etc. And he looks up to her. DDG was calling her his B word, and he jealous and insecure. So he goes deeper into his insecurities by asking if the person in question is cheating on him. The person in question is Holly Bailey. It's a couple things about your job I want to know. I do. When you shoot your movie, do these N words turn you on? On. When you leave the set, do y'all still text each other phone? Phone. I don't know why he repeats it, but just because they filming it don't mean that it ain't wrong. He did not repeat wrong. Oh, wow. Shea Butter Baby had a lot to say. She said DDG is a whole A loser, like an insecure small little man. The whole song is the nastiest thing he could have done to her. The misogyny and pure dismissal of Holly is overwhelming. So anyway, why are we looking at this? Why are we looking at this? We're looking at this because apparently shortly after DDG made this song where he was talking about how insecure he is about his girlfriend, excuse me, his girlfriend holding hands and kissing a man on set. Mind you, I think she was filming this movie prior to being in a relationship with him. But don't worry, I have their relationship timeline right next to this. And we'll get to that next. But shortly after he wrote this song, apparently he was up to this.
And action.
Damn, that ass fat.
Oh my! Somebody just smacked my ass.
That
was perfect.
That was the one.
That was perfect.
Maybe when people call out someone, specifically men, I've noticed, when they call out their partner for alleged cheating, or are you cheating on me? Are you going to these clubs and cheating on me? Maybe it's like projection. Maybe it's because they're doing something that they feel like is wrong. So when their partner goes out and does the same thing, they think that their partner is also engaging in like illicit activity, like they might be behind closed doors. Maybe that's it. Now, the only other thing, apparently there were breakup rumors in April 2024 because they unfollowed each other on Instagram. And they also took down most of the pictures that they had posted together. However, according to TMZ, a rep for Holly Bailey reached out to clear the air and state that the couple was in fact still together. While the rep did not explain why they decided to unfollow each other, they made it known that they made it known that they are still going strong and continue to parent their 3-month-old son together. I think they're going to break up. Actually, no. I feel like people unfollow each other and then follow each other back and then delete all the pictures and then add them back. I feel like people go through that several times. And I think they're on maybe number 3. I feel like they got 4 more in them. I'm going to say at least 7. At least 7. So that's all that is. Also, one of my members did not get their dab. Let me look up that member and then I will give them their dab now. I do think it's very important that every member gets their dab when they join. That is something that I deeply care about. I think it was Victoria Richards. Let me check. I think it was Victoria Richards. Welcome to the membership, Victoria. Either you're in here or you're going to watch it back. Either you're in here or you're going to watch it back. Those are both okay. So with that being said, now that we've gotten DDG out of the way, I just thought that was interesting. That literally came up in my feed a short moment before I streamed. So I had to Google, wait, wasn't DDG, is this the same DDG who was like, I hate when my girlfriend is out here touching on men, holding hand and whatnot? And apparently, yes, it is. What else is on the agenda for today? Before we get into the main topic, this is something that I think is very important because I don't understand if people know that we have 2 eyes and can see. I don't know if people know that we have 2 eyes and 2 ears and can see and hear. I want to quickly show you guys something that you've probably already seen before. This is a man with a suspended license who joined a court Zoom call while driving. Again, not related to our main topic today. We're just like icebreaker.
Public Defender Natalie Tate for Mr. Harris, who should be present, is due.
Mr. Harris, are you driving?
Actually, I'm pulling into my doctor's office, actually. So just give me 1 second. I'm parking right now.
Very cordial, very well spoken. He has joined his Zoom call at the right time. And not only has he joined his Zoom call at the right time, but he is instructing the judge that he is finishing up something at the moment, but he wanted to go ahead and join as he finishes up these last few seconds of doing what he needs to do. Fortunately, what he's doing is driving while he has a suspended license that he's in court for. And the thing is, I feel like he sounded proud. Are you driving, sir? I'm parking right now. Maybe I imagined it. Let's go back. Maybe I imagined it.
Actually, I'm pulling into my doctor's office, actually. So just give me 1 second. I'm parking right now.
Great.
Now, I do want to point out the judge looking around. Like, do y'all see this shit too? Like, he looked from left to right, back to left. Let me continue it.
You stationary?
I'm pulling in right now at this second. Yes, I am.
I knew I didn't imagine it. He is happy. He is giddy. Are you parking now? Yes, I am. In 3, 2, 1, ready to go.
All right. What are we doing?
Your Honor, we are respectfully requesting an adjournment in this matter.
Let me look up an adjournment real quick. Is that his lawyer? Your Honor, can we push the court date back? That lawyer better get out there and learn your lawyer. Now, this is some silly shit. Adjournment, an act or period of adjourning or being adjourned. Now, what does that help? What does that help me to determine what it... Okay, let's look up adjourned. Past tense of adjourn. Google is not helping today. To break off a meeting, legal case, or game, for example, with the intention of resuming it later. So I was right. His lawyer, if that's his lawyer is like, Your Honor, I request, what did she say? I request we push this back.
Your Honor, we are respectfully requesting an adjournment in this matter, up possibly 2 to 4 weeks if the court would allow.
My lawyer better be just like that. Just like that. Are you smoking weed right now, Prince.petti? Yes, sir. I'm just about to put it out. My lawyer better come in, Your Honor. Can we push the court date back? Can we push the court date back? No, Your Honor. What I'm saying is, can we push the court date back? That's all I'm saying. Can we push the court date back? Let's not make any judgments right now. Let's go ahead and just push the court date back.
So maybe I don't understand something. This is a driving while license.
No, sir. It's not you who doesn't understand something. Somebody doesn't understand something, but it's not the judge.
I don't understand something. This is a driving while license suspended.
That is correct, Your Honor.
And he was just driving. And he didn't have a license.
Now, I like that his mouth slowly opened. It wasn't an instant realization. It wasn't an instant. He was like, yeah, I am here for a suspended license. What's wrong? Oh, right. Because people are saying that he was confused as soon as his lips did this right here, if you're looking at the screen. This is not where he was confused. This is not where he realized. Excuse me. People were saying he realized right here. This is not where he realized it. This is where he was confused. Why is the judge confused? Yes, I am here for my revoked driver's license. Why is he asking that? After, once his mouth opens and you can see the full bottom row of teeth, that's when he's figured it out. Let's go back one more again, and then I'll let it play through.
And he was just driving, and he didn't have a license.
I like how her request for adjournment was just completely ignored. She was like, "Your Honor, can we push the court date back?" And he was like, "Anyway, so your client is driving while he's in court for not being able to drive, or?"
Is with the charges, Your Honor, yes.
No, I'm looking at his
Yes.
record. He doesn't have a license. He's suspended and he's just driving.
That is correct, Your Honor.
Oh. And to be honest, I don't even know what to tell him to say. I know he didn't just leave did you? If I commit a crime and then walk out of my court proceeding, did the crime not exist? Why did he leave the Zoom call? Did they kick him off or did he leave? I feel like he left. He was like, "Uh-oh, if I close my eyes, they can't see me."
I don't even know why he would do that. So defendant's bond is revoked in this matter. Defendant is to turn himself into the Washington County Jail by 6 p.m. today. Failure to turn himself in will result in a bench warrant with no bond.
Wow. Oh, remember, he didn't drop out the call. They just changed the view so we couldn't see him. I was like, okay. You know, jumping off the Zoom call doesn't delete the evidence. Oh, you're God. Yep. What do the comments say? They say he's... Nah, the first comment got me. He said he's going to drive himself to jail at 6 p.m. Nah, I'm not about to do this with y'all. The judge thought he was being punked. Driving without a license and using the phone in the video. Like, you can't also, yeah, even if you had your license, why are you driving while holding your phone in your right hand looking at a Zoom meeting? Even if you're just parking, they can technically still, this is still, I believe, technically against the law. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure even if you're parking, like once it's in gear, it doesn't matter if you're in your driveway, sitting in your car and you put it in reverse, you driving now. That's what I feel like the police would say, or the legal system generally. It came out that his license really wasn't expended. Aww. Cynthia came to ruin my day. I was having so much fun because they said he gonna drive himself to jail at 6 p.m. and I laughed. He sounded so proud when he parked his car. Yes, he did. Let me go back. Because I think it's important to see black men joy, right? Do you guys remember the black men frolicking? You guys remember that? Here we go. It's important to see black men happy, I believe, because we don't see this enough in the media.
I'm pulling in right now at this second. Yes, I am.
Yes, I am. I love that. I love his happy demeanor. I really do. And I mean that genuinely. I'm not being sarcastic. Are you parked now? Yes, I am. All right. Turn yourself in at 6 p.m. And you better walk. And he has a doctor's appointment. He is short on time. Maybe it's in the morning, though. Okay, that's enough of that. That's enough of that. Let's see. I think I have one more. So this man was there were some black men in particular in this man's comments who were upset at this man because he makes content about his I'm not sure if it's his wife or his girlfriend, but let's just say girlfriend. He's dating a black woman. And he makes content about that over and over and over. Oh, what's his name? Do y'all know Gary Owens? I'm pretty sure he's a comedian like that. He like does stand up, and all of his stand up is like my black wife, and they invited me to the cookout, and I went to the black barber for the first. All of his content is like centered around his wife being black and him being around that, and the black wife effect and such things. So this is one of those people, I believe, who does that, and people were upset, so he decided to respond.
Can you make any other content that's not dependent on you dating a black woman? No. Also, we're married, and if you've spent 5 seconds in the same room as that woman, that is all you would want to talk about too. Every moment I am away from her is like 1,000 Kid Rock concerts. My final breath will be her name.
One more again.
Can you make any other content that's not dependent on you dating a black woman? No. Also, we're married, and if you've spent 5 seconds in the same room as that woman, that is all you would want to talk about too. Every moment I am away from her is like 1,000 Kid Rock concerts. My final breath will be her name.
Excellent. We love some black woman praise over here. We don't see that a lot in the black community, so it's important for us to see that. Last thing, and then we can get into the topic. Excuse me. So a show has been going viral called Baby Reindeer, and apparently against the show creators, against the show creators' wishes, people are like reaching out to the real life people that the story is based on. I have not seen Baby Reindeer yet, but I have seen clips, and I have seen clips around the actor that this woman apparently is the actor who plays this woman. And this is my first time ever seeing her talk in person. And I believe she did everything. I believe she did everything that's in the clips I've seen of Baby Reindeer. I believe she did every single thing.
Were you ever in love with him?
Yes. Is that a serious question?
Yeah.
No.
Wait, did she say yes and no? I might have missed that. Hold up.
Were you ever in love with him?
Yes. Is that a serious question?
Yeah.
No. No.
It's not a question of, by his own admission, he has said that he led you on at times. And he clearly
I gave him the brush off. He asked me to sleep with him with a big green spot in his face one day. I said, no, I'm sorry, I'm not interested.
He asked you to do what?
He asked me to sleep with him. He said, would I like my curtains fixed? And I laughed. And he said, that's a euphemism. Do you want me to come home with you? And I said, I've got a boyfriend. I gave him the brush off.
She did it. Sorry, let it continue.
Big time, I think. You know, subtly so, but the bottom line is, I think this is behind him. No, I don't fancy him. I don't fancy little boys without jobs. That sounds awful. That sounds really, really callous, but, you know.
I understand her. It's hard being beautiful. I understand her completely. It's hard when everyone wants you. I do believe in the Delulu, and I believe it's okay to be Delulu, but not when it hurts other people. Let me see. Someone said the actress was spot on in Baby Reindeer. She has officially proved that Baby Reindeer is nonfiction. Every bit of it was true. Someone said you can make a whole new Baby Reindeer season off of this. She also denied everything. So someone asked, where is it? There we go. They Love Mari asked, what is Baby Reindeer about? I have not seen it at all. I'm going to try to give you a brief summary based on the TikTok clips I have seen. I've seen like 35-second TikTok clips of the show throughout TikTok sometimes. So I'm going to give my interpretation. There's a man who works at a bar, I think. This woman comes to the bar and she has wild stories. Her stories are always like outlandishly wild. Like, oh my God, yeah, Tom Hanks was hitting on me. You know, it's so hard because Denzel Washington is married, but he always comes and hits on me too. I think Chris Brown was in my DMs and I had to say no to him. Like, I would never date someone like him. He doesn't meet my standard. And I had this billionaire who wanted to talk to me. It just seems like she lies a lot, particularly about men being interested in her dating life. So the man who works at the bar, he is catching on that she's lying, and I think he feels bad. So he's trying to cozy up with her and be friends, I think, or be open with her and talk to her. And eventually this evolves into a weird relationship. And then she starts stalking him or doing something. I don't know. Also, apparently she's sending him emails, but they're misspelled. Oh, she was pretending to have an iPhone. I remember this clip, and she was sending emails, and the email would say sent from my iPhone. But he looked at one of the emails one day and iPhone was misspelled, which indicated that she was actually typing out sent from my iPhone, which is like, why is that something you would lie about? But anyway, yeah, I just see it as a show where she lies a lot, and he started off wanting to be kind to her, and it went horribly wrong. That's my interpretation. I have never seen this show. I have not read the summary or description, so don't take that as fact. That's what I've seen. So I'm gonna play my intro, and then we can get swallowed up. I mean, we can get into the video.
I would have been swallowed up. Have you ever been swallowed up? Swallowed up. Have you ever been swallowed up? Swallowed up. Have you ever been swallowed up? Been swallowed up. Been swallowed up. Been swallowed up. Swallowed up. Have you ever been swallowed up? Swallowed up. Been swallowed up. Swallowed up. Been swallowed up. Swallowed up. Swallowed up. Swallowed. Been swallowed up. Swallowed. Swallowed up. Swallowed. Been swallowed up. I would have been swallowed up. Have you ever been swallowed up? Swallowed up. Have you ever been swallowed up? Swallowed up. Have you ever been swallowed up? Been swallowed up. Been swallowed up. Been swallowed up. Swallowed up. Have you ever been swallowed up? Swallowed up. Been swallowed up. Swallowed up. Been swallowed up. Swallowed. Swallowed up. Swallowed. Been swallowed up. Swallowed. Swallowed up. Swallowed. Been swallowed up.
Excellent. I have no problem playing that intro twice ever. Swallowed up. So let's start. Let's start with this. A growing trend. Maybe it's not a growing trend. That's a lie. I looked on Google Trends and it is trending. A growing trend on TikTok, in the internet generally, but particularly on TikTok, is for women to recount their dating experiences with men who they deem, quote, family annihilators. What is a family annihilator? Based on the TikToks that I've seen, men who are sabotaging their relationship with their girlfriend, don't care about their girlfriend or spouse or children, right? Sabotaging these relationships. And the recollections tend to be centered around self-sabotaging behaviors that some men tend to engage in while in relationships. However, to say that this is the mild end of the spectrum for family annihilators would be an understatement. Opposite the end of funny TikTok stories where women are spilling ketchup on the counter and men are wiping it up horribly. Opposite that are women and children who have been the victims of familicide, a type of murder or murder-suicide in which an individual kills multiple close family members in quick succession, usually, most often, children, spouses, siblings, or parents. Chris Watts might be a familiar name to you. John List might be a familiar name to you. Is this too deep after that intro? Should I have buffered something in between there? Should I added something between that? Anyway, Chris Watts or John List, these might be familiar names to you. These are maybe some of the most infamous and prominent examples in recent history of men who commit familicide. In this live stream, I think we should go over some family annihilator statistics and some cases that I found particularly interesting. By doing this, I believe we can create a profile of people who may have a higher likelihood to commit such atrocities and determine some of the warning signs that may help people, particularly women and children, who are most likely to be the victims of these crimes. By identifying some of these warning signs, I believe we can help them protect themselves. So, without further ado, let me pull up this article. Actually, let's save this article for last. I was going to go through this article first. It's 5 infamous cases of men who unalived their families. But instead of doing that, I think we should first go to my initial inspiration for this. My initial inspiration was I was scrolling on Reddit, which is something I do now because I didn't know Reddit was a thing that Black people do, if I'm being honest. I didn't know it was a thing that Black people do generally. But my friend was talking about how she's on Reddit. She's moving to a city and she's on Reddit talking about, do y'all live in this area? What's this area like? What's the crime rate? How safe is it? Blah, 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 blah. So apparently this is a useful tool that people use. So I'm on it. I'm in there. I am in there. I'm in these trenches. And as I'm in these trenches, one of the things that piqued my interest was this news story, which I'll pull up now. I do want to give a trigger warning, by the way, because we will be discussing, obviously, family annihilators in this stream. So if that's something that you are sensitive around, be sure to prep yourself. It's not like we're going to get like incredibly graphic or anything like that, but we will be discussing themes around that. So just be privy to that if you are not already. Welcome to the membership, Shim Jim. Dab. Every new member gets a new dab, by the way. Only for your joining, you don't get to join and then leave and then join and then leave and then join and then leave and get a dab each time. Don't exploit the dab. But welcome to the membership. We are very ghetto here. So, excuse me, I have the wrong article pulled up. So this is the article that came up. Wow, that's epilepsy warning they should have put out. 3 children killed in an apparent murder-suicide after mom let ex-partner take them to get food. An officer patrolling Lucky Shoals Park about 20 miles northeast of Atlanta discovered the bodies of a man and 3 children aged 9, 11, and 13. Sorry, Phoebe. Dab. You also have to join on a stream. Like if y'all just join, when you join on the stream, this pops up. Like it just pops up. I can see it. And it's there. It's visible. If y'all are just joining whenever, save it. Save it for the stream. Save your 99 cents for the stream. Be out here and be seen. So let's get into this. 3 children aged 9 to 13 were killed in what police believe is a murder-suicide after their mother agreed to let an ex-partner take them to get something to eat, officials in Georgia say. A police officer patrolling Lucky Shoals Park in Gwinnett County, about 20 miles northeast of Atlanta, discovered the bodies of a man and 3 children shortly after 1 a.m. Wednesday in a vehicle parked on a walking trail. Gwinnett County Police identified the children as Arani Rodriguez, Chattel Rodriguez, and Carlos Rodriguez. They were 13, 11, and 9. The suspect was identified as Jose Placencia, 56, who was previously in a relationship with the children's mother. Police said the mother was at the hospital because another one of her children had an unrelated injury. Placencia was the father of the injured child and had met the mother and the children at the hospital. After some time, the mother agreed to let the 3 children go with the suspect to grab a bite to eat while she remained at the hospital, police said in a statement on Facebook. Gwinnett County Police Sergeant Michelle Vieira called the incident a tragedy. our officers are going to step aside and do the job to the fullest and make sure they investigate this as if it were any other homicide and try to at least bring some conclusion to the families who may be involved. This is what they released to the news. For some reason, this case intrigued me. I'm not sure why. Not intrigued me as in I looked up this case and I like researched it a lot or did something like that, but particularly because someone referred to this in the comments as family annihilation. And they said they can't imagine how the mother feels. And I can't either, because you're already in the hospital caring for one of your child and your ex seemingly comes to you to do a good deed. This could have been seen as a miracle in this time, which does make me sad. You are bogged down with one child who is in the ER and you have 3 other children to care for, and your ex out of nowhere offers to handle that for you. This could feel like a weight off of someone's shoulders, only for the night to end how it ended, which we just read about. So I believe that, number one, the surviving child is going to have trauma. I can't diagnose someone with that, and I don't wish it on anyone. But I do believe that's something that might affect them. And I was wondering why something like this is so prevalent in men specifically. That's what I was wondering. The reason I was wondering that is because along with family annihilation popping up in my TikTok feed, what's also popping up is, of course, the conversation about women being in the woods with a bear versus a man. And there seems to be a disconnect, not just that conversation, right? But there's also the 4B movement, which has been met with the 4G movement. And there's the song about the single moms on TikTok. It seems like there's misogyny festering. And when I see cases like these, I don't understand how people don't understand why there's a certain fear around men generally, not just from women, mind you, but from other men too, who are also likely to be assaulted or unalived, right, by other men. I don't understand why people are confused about that. What I'm also confused about is why something like this happens. What emboldens someone to do this? So I decided to look into some research. What I found was a study called Family Annihilators, the Psychological Profiles of Murderous Fathers, which is the title of the stream. And I read through some of it. I'd like to read through some of it today. I think we can probably get through about half of it. It's around 40 pages long, so we can get through about 20 pages today. It's not too difficult to read, and I think it's interesting. And like I said at the beginning of the stream, I believe this can inform us about people who are likely to do things like this. Because I did make a connection between the family annihilators on TikTok who are failing to clean up catch-up and who are, it seems like, purposefully sabotaging their relationships and just being the worst person in their relationship, as if they don't want to be there with this woman or with these children or both. I made a connection, and that connection, I believe, was supported by the research. Let's look into it. So what I found when I looked this up were several studies. This is just one of them. And this is from the University at Albany State University of New York. Oh, I didn't know they were an honors college. They're an honors college. Cool. And it looks like this is from the Criminal Justice Department. So let's scroll to not the abstract. Actually, yeah, let's do the abstract. So Yardley, Wilson, and Limes in 2014, in their study of British family annihilators between 1980 and 2012, established 4 profiles of familicide, yeah, offenders: self-righteous, disappointed, anomic, and paranoid. This paper located 39 cases of familicide. That's going to be the one tonight. That's going to be the word tonight. I know it. within the United States between 2009 and 2019. So this data isn't very old, with the most recent being from 5 years ago. And they did this using LexisNexis. Familicide is defined as domestic crime where a father murders at least one of his biological children and the children's mother. Cases were categorized by analyzing the relationship between the offender's primary motives and features of the crime and offender. Primary motives were family breakdown, appearance, financial distress, mental illness, and protection. I lost track of where I was. I have to find it. Here's some hold music. Okay, I found it. Primary motives were family breakdown, appearance, financial distress, mental illness, and protection. Features included domestic violence, financial distress, mental illness, divorce affairs, custody disputes, jealousy, and substance use. It looks different on my screen, by the way. It's very small. Hopefully you guys can see it. Let me try and make it bigger for you. I know none of you are reading this, but if you wanted to, you know what I mean? If you wanted to, you would. There we go. Okay. Hopefully you all can see this if you would like to read. I doubt you will, but here it is. Not me doubting, y'all. From this analysis, the behaviors of the offender after familicide, such as completed or attempted suicide, denial, or fleeing, were also considered. From this analysis, 2 new profiles of familicide emerged: the self-preserving offender, who is triggered by a threat to their individual well-being, and the mentally ill offender, who is triggered by a serious mental disorder or disability. Understanding each profile and the associated features of familicide can help protect at-risk families by identifying the warning signs and intervening before the crime takes place. You know what's interesting? I watched the TikTok. This is not verifiable with data right now for me. It might be, but I don't have the data to support it right now. So grain of salt, please. I watched a TikTok that talked about how, because it mentioned mental illness, right? And I watched a TikTok about how these things tend to show up differently in men and women, where men are externalizing and women are internalizing. The reason why, maybe you can attribute to gender differences, cultural norms, maybe biology and a difference in testosterone or whatever hormones are running through your body might make you do different things. But I certainly found it interesting. I don't know if this is all the words on the page. Okay. Let's make that smaller because now I can't see it. So this gets into a lot. Let's start with their introduction. Familicide is broadly defined as one family member killing multiple other family members, where the goal is to destroy the family unit. Let me pause and say, this is not necessarily about a man and his spouse. This can be a woman and her spouse. This can be father, blah, 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 blah. But for this study, it looks like they're defining it as specifically a man, his wife, and his children. Where the goal is to destroy the family unit. As a whole, familicide is relatively rare in comparison with other forms of crime. The most common form of familicide is the murder of at least one child and a spouse, ex-spouse, or intimate partner. These events are considered a type of mass murder as multiple people are killed in a short period of time in one setting. The 2 components of familicide are uxoricide, or the killing of one's wife, and filicide, the killing of children by their parents. In almost every case, the familicide is premeditated and the perpetrator views his family members as property. Does that sound familiar? Let's continue. Such that he maintains the right to end their lives. Let me see where I want to pause. I don't think I want to pause here. Let's continue. Let's gather a little more. Perpetrators need to maintain their masculinity, which is tied to the family unit, as well as control and power over their family members. When these factors are threatened, they act out against the family violently and fatally. Does this sound familiar? When fearing abandonment, offenders adopt a Medea complex. If I cannot have them, no one can, exemplified through the murders. Studies of these cases provide insight into how the psychological processes of marital conflict and parent-child conflict interact. This is certainly interesting to me because we're going to read about themes of manipulation. We're going to read about themes of ownership and feeling like you own your partner and their fate is for you to determine. Their choices and decisions are for you to determine, as well as a need to protect masculinity. Because this is stuff we talked about before, particularly when we were talking about my friend and how she was hit on at the gas station. Which is not a uncommon story. And when she politely declined and said she had a boyfriend, what first started as compliments turned into insults. How someone goes from you're very beautiful to you ugly anyway, don't nobody want you be, is anyone's guess. But the research suggests that these are men who are scrambling to protect their masculinity, which rejection threatens, according to the research. I'm saying that because a part of this says that when they fear abandonment, they have this type of, if I can't have you, no one can, as well as the research suggesting that these people need to maintain their masculinity, which is tied to the family unit, particularly their wife or sometimes children or both. So I do believe that this ties into research that we've already went through before, and I just found it interesting, the connection. Here's a review of the literature. In this thesis, only male offenders will be considered as they are the predominant familicide offenders, making up 96%. The majority of these, that surprised me, by the way. That was extremely surprising to me. Because I thought, even when we look at violent crime, for example, I thought it was maybe like 80% of men and 20% of women, but apparently it's much, much higher than I could have imagined. Actually, let me look it up. Let's research, guys. Are men more violent than women? It looks like the evaluation found 75.6% of all offenders were male, 20.1% were female. In the remaining cases, the victim wasn't able to identify the gender. So about 3 times more likely than women for violent crime in particular. And then for, maybe it was sexual crimes. Yep, it's sexual crimes. So sexual crimes is much higher. So 91% of victims of rape are in sexual assault are female, 9% of victims are male, and around 99% of perpetuators are male. Mind you, this is for both male and female victims. The perpetrator is generally male. This is considering both female and male victims. The perpetuator is generally male, apparently around 99%. But let's get back into the study. That's not what we're here to discuss today. I was just curious about what the crime rate is generally. Not the crime rate, but what the likelihood is, the breakdown between gender and what percent each does. So for familicide, only men are being considered in this study since they make up the majority of offenders, 96%. The majority of these offenders are between 30 and 50 years old, use a firearm as their method of killing. Typically, child victims are the biological offspring of the offender, with 78% of familicide offenders in the Netherlands and 96% in Britain unaliving their biological children. Additionally, after the murders, around half of the offenders commit self-deletion. Across cases in the United States between 2000 and 2009, there was an average of 2.81 victims where the adult was primarily female, and the children were slightly more female than male, around 52% to 48% female to male. Though 20% of the cases involved stepchildren, spouses were almost always the primary source of the offender's anger. 69% of offenders lived with all of their victims during the crime, while an additional 10% lived with at least one of the victims. Most of the offenses occurred within the victims' homes. 73% of murders involved a firearm, and the remaining 27% were conducted in more intimate manners, such as sharp or blunt force trauma and strangulation. I do want to pause here and emphasize this, and I'll do this every time we go over any data like this, because the idea that women go out at night and someone jumps out of the bushes is not common and not true. I do see a lot of when there's something that happens to a female victim, particularly, generally, you may hear people talk about clothing choice, for example. You may hear people talk about behavior like going out at night or going to a party with strange people, walking alone, etc. But again, generally, this happens like in the home with someone you know and should be able to trust. So yes, I think, where did it say? Was it 69%? 69% live with. That's not what it is. Most of the victim occurred in the victim's home. And even if they didn't occur in the home, by the way, this is true, I think, for most crime. Even if they didn't occur in the home, that doesn't necessarily mean that a person was out like doing dangerous behavior that might, or behavior that may make them more likely to be in danger. Like, people can be walking to school and have acid thrown on them. People can be walking into work, walking into their house. So I just wanted to point that out. August had the highest rates of familicides, as children were out of school and therefore more accessible to offenders. For the same reason, weekends throughout the year saw more familicides than weekdays. The offenders reflect law-abiding citizens and sufficient husbands and fathers before their offense. There was rarely a legal violent history or excessive substance abuse. Mind you, there was rarely a legal violent history. This doesn't necessarily mean that there was not violence happening in the home. We do know that people sometimes are not likely to report crime, especially when they're the victim. And I think particularly in domestic abuse cases, but I'm not sure. I will look it up now. Oh, wow, that's much more than I thought. KPU is saying it is around 70% that is not reported to the police. So only 30% is reported to the police, and even more alarming, only 5% of SA is reported. This can be due to fear, gender, age, minority considerations, etc. So that's interesting. So yeah, I'm just saying, even though there might not be a record for it, that doesn't mean that it just happened spontaneously out of nowhere and there was never any behavior. We know some people who can put on a face for decades. In fact, I think that's pretty common. Like, I think it's pretty common, the idea that someone does something like this and then people come out and say, I never would have thought he would do something like that. I remember the nurse who unalived his ex-wife and his ex-girlfriend and then himself, and people were saying he was a star employee at work. He's an amazing guy. He was chill. He never indicated to us that he does something like this. But behind closed doors, of course, things can be different. Behind closed doors, things can be different. A minority of offenders had histories of criminality, mental illness, or need for social service assistance. Additionally, offenders had been employed throughout a wide diversity of fields. In all cases, there was some history of unsolved problems contributing to seemingly abrupt outbursts. Offenders attempted to separate their feelings of low self-esteem, depression, and large goals from their definition of self. Outbursts of violence bridged the two. Theories of crime. The most relevant that's a word. Criminological. Well, it looks like a question for Google.
Criminological.
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 Criminological. Got it. The most relevant criminological theories to familicize are Durkheim's anomie, Merton's strain theory, Agnew's general strain theory, and developmental or life course theories. Each of these offer different possible routes of the perpetuator's criminality as well as contributing motives to their offenses. This is the part I wanted to get into because this talks about the different profiles. Be sure to leave a like on the video also on your way in. It helps out the algorithm. And subscribe. So, anomie. Emil Durkheim. Let's pause. I'm not going to pretend like black names are hard when they have names like this. I'm not about to sit here and do this. I refuse anyone who says Jacques, or any name like that is hard to pronounce. I'm not going to do it with them because Emily Durkheim or Emil Durkheim, maybe it's Emil Durkheim, who knows? In his book, The Division of Labor in Society, defines anomie as lawlessness. In modern translation, Durkheim's anomie is thought of as normlessness, where the breakdown of social norms results in mayhem, such that individuals are more likely to commit crime. Durkheim also developed the theory of anomic suicide, in which an offender believes that the family is no longer representative of what he thinks the unit should reflect, and as a means of resolving dissonance, the father murders the family and then kills himself. So I think this is important because there are themes, if you saw the thumbnail on my video, there are themes throughout this study and other studies like it when it comes to men who put their hands on women in general, men who unalive women and children in general, men who unalive other men in general. There seems to be a type of correlation I find between the beliefs in the men who are likely to do things like this and men who might follow like Andrew Tate, men who might listen to Fresh and Fit or Abba and Preach or whoever have you in the manosphere, Kevin Samuels. These sound like the same people to me. There's a sort of, mind you, this study was in 1893. This study was in 1893. And if you guys remember on the men's rights video we did, where we went back all the way in the 1800s, it was men, while women are fighting for like the right to vote, it was men talking about, we're going to make our own campaign for men's rights. All the way back then, when women are like considered property, there were men who were mocking. There's the manosphere back then, the men's rights groups back then, the 4G movement, whatever the men call themselves these days, incel and such things. This happens throughout history, I want to remind you. So this was in 1893, where there are men who feel like in their relationship, right, social norms are in what's normal is falling apart. Social norms, the breakdown of social norms, they believe is going to result in mayhem. So they become more likely to put their hands on women. That's interesting. They become more likely to be violent towards women. They are more likely to commit crime generally, but violent towards women is what we're focusing on in this study. So why is this important? Why is it important that in 1893, there were already men being studied because they feel like modern women are no longer normal. There's a breakdown of social norms, etc. Not even just modern women, right? Their relationship and such things. That sounds eerily similar, I believe, to today. And I think that's concerning. These are men who are more likely to not only be violent generally, but unalive their wife and children because they feel like social norms are becoming different. They feel like their woman is becoming different from what they want to be the social norm. And this does sound, I believe, eerily similar to the manosphere, who talk about the modern woman and the breakdown of society and blah, blah, blah. The same thing that men have talked about decade after decade from the 1800s, apparently. At least. I haven't researched prior to the 1800s, but at least into the 1800s, this is what men have been saying. And the men who say this in particular are more likely to be violent. So He says he believes the family is no longer representative of what he thinks the unit should reflect, and as a means of resolving dissonance, he unalives them and then self-deletes. Strain. Robert Merton expanded on Durkheim's concept of anomie and developed strain theory, which posits that people who are unable to achieve wealth through conventional means experience strain. To resolve anomie, people must adjust their outlook or behaviors through conformity, innovation, ritualism, retreatism, or rebellion. Concerning familicide, retreatism is related to extended suicides in which the offender unalives his family and himself to escape from life's strain. Rebellion is related to homicide, in which the offender views his family as the source of strain and unalives them, but not the self, as a means of resolve. Robert Agnew adapted Merton's strain theory to form the general strain theory, where individuals experience multiple types of strain beyond economic distress. This occurs when people are either blocked from reaching their goals, stripped of positive stimuli, or exposed to negative stimuli. Negative stimuli, including anomie, personal or occupational failure, and consistent frustration cause strain, threatening individual power. Such strain also extends to the family, as offenders believe that their families cannot care for themselves, and when they are no longer able to provide for the family, the father resorts to unaliving them. If strain exists outside of the family, the offender is more likely to attempt self-deletion rather than if his family is viewed as the source of strain. So men who might believe that their wife, for example, is a drain on resources, or they're unable to keep up with their family's bills, maybe their groceries, their rent, blah, 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 financial stress, right? They are likely to unalive their family. But people who believe society generally is hard and it's hard out here for a man to make money, they're more likely to unalive themselves and their family. I want to point out that these are things that are not exclusive to men, which is, again, interesting because the people who make up this data are, well, all of the data in here is from men, but the people who make up familicide generally is 96% men. But it's not just men who experience negative stimuli. So I wonder, maybe it's specifically that it threatens individual power. That's one that they touched on, because if you might be a woman in the workplace, for example, you might experience sexual harassment. You might be paid less than someone who has a degree that's equal to yours, works a similar amount of hours, and has a similar work history, but is a man. There might be discrimination that you face in the workplace or at school or outside generally, right? Negative stimuli, all I'm saying, is not exclusive to men. So I wonder why, and I think the answer is individual power. That's what the study seems to be pointing at. I wonder why, like, you don't have trans people don't have a very high murder rate. Like, they don't go out and unalive people, even though they're a highly debated demographic. I don't think gay people have a high murder rate. The women obviously don't have a high murder rate. They only make up, I think, 4% of these cases. So I'm wondering, is it the power specifically? Is it the power specifically? Is it like the loss of power? It also points to strict ideas of masculinity. If you guys remember the study we looked at earlier this year or last year, last year, around masculinity and the men who lash out when they are rejected. Again, there are men who believe in a specific type of masculinity, and if they can't achieve that, they start being violent. Sometimes it's verbal at the gas station if you reject them, or at the gym, or at the coffee shop you work at, or on the street when you're walking. Sometimes it's just a verbal assault of words, and then sometimes it's physical violence. Developmental life course. In addition to life circumstances around the time of offense, other risk factors to familicide are often formed in childhood and persist into adulthood. This was an interesting one too, because I tried to look into this. I'm pretty sure I read somewhere grain of salt, because I couldn't actually find this. I didn't really look for it. I looked for like a minute and it didn't pop up. So I didn't pursue it further. But I was pretty sure I remember reading something around, again, when we talked about men externalizing stuff earlier and women internalizing it. Not like generally, but specifically as it relates to lashing out, for example, because you're upset, being something that's associated with men more and more likely to happen in men. I was wondering if I recall reading something around boys and girls, children who are victims of violence, domestic violence from their father, for example, or cousin or mother or whoever. And the boy children growing up being more likely to perpetuate abuse, and the girl children growing up being more likely to be in abusive relationships and less likely to leave those relationships. And I'm wondering, let me try and find it. Because I remember looking this up, and I'm pretty sure that was true. But when I was reading it, it said there's this myth that boy children grow up to be more violent, whereas girl children don't. And it's important for us not to perpetuate this myth. But they didn't actually say it was not true. So it's saying 1/3 of all individuals who are physically abused, sexually abused, or extremely neglected will subject their children to one of these forms of maltreatment. That's not necessarily what I'm looking for, although that would be interesting research to read as well. I'm looking for how it might manifest in their relationship. So towards their partner specifically. Oh no, I closed the tab by accident. Now I'm lost. I can't see anything on my screen. Do you guys still hear me? I just closed some really important stuff and now I'm like lost. I wonder why people like this don't like skip to the end of their plans where they self-delete. Like, why take other people? I don't have to wonder. We're reading the study, but that would be nice. I feel like it would be nice. It would be a better world. So I am seeing, I'm not able to find this research. All I can find is about domestic abuse generally, which does men again perpetuate this mostly, and women tend to be on the receiving end mostly. But that doesn't tell me if their upbringing affects. I feel like it definitely does. I don't know why I can't find this. Like I'm searching for it so hard, but I cannot find a study regarding does being abused as a child make you more likely to be an abusive partner. All I can find is that you are more likely to treat your child poorly if you were abused. Statistically speaking, this isn't every individual who's abused doesn't go on to, but I can't find it right now, so we can continue. Maybe come back to it another day. Does anyone need a palate cleanser? Are we good to continue? We are halfway through. I'm going to try to speed through the rest because I feel like we're getting a general idea. I feel like we're making good connect. I feel like these are good connections to the manosphere. I feel like these are ideas that sometimes there are entire channels on the manosphere predicated on these ideas, like modern women are not meeting this idea of traditional femininity anymore. Modern society is changing. It's hard out here for men. I remember watching someone, is it Jordan Peterson maybe? Someone was like, white boys and white men are the most oppressed class in society. Like, I'm sorry. Oh my. I forgot to change my avatar back. There. Let's go with this. Hello, Terry. Welcome. It does sound Jordan Peterson, but yeah, these are ideas going through this study. These are ideas that I feel like generally apply to the manosphere, like nearly verbatim. You might hear men complain about modern society, everything's changed. Where did it say? It was an anime. Normlessness. The breakdown of social norms results in mayhem, such that individuals, particularly men, are more likely to commit crime. And the family is no longer representative of what he thinks the unit should reflect. Again, this does sound like men who are like, we need to go back to the days where women were this and that in the nuclear family, even though that's relatively recent in history. People do call that traditional. This does sound eerily similar to me. Maybe it doesn't to you. But that's why the reason I wanted to look into this in the first place is because of the study that was coming out on the manosphere and the men in the manosphere and the watch list that the FBI is doing. When I was reading through that study, which I went through before this one, it was again eerily similar to what I'm reading here. So when you have these institutions and government studying the manosphere and studying the likelihood of a boy who's consuming content like this, believes in masculinity like this and these ideals, being more likely to go off and commit a mass shooting, for example, or go out and try to unalive a lot of women. The FBI is making these connections. Researchers are making these connections. And when you go through that study, I feel like it's very similar to this. That's what I think intrigued me. I was like, this sounds like the manosphere. That's concerning. So, childhood trauma and or poor attachment to parents can lead the child to develop maladaptive tendencies and traits. For example, disorganized, preoccupied, dismissive, ambivalent, and or avoidant partners, often produce anxious and angry children prone to violence. Abuse or neglect, as well as parental separation, can cause the child to develop a fear of abandonment, which may be carried into adulthood. Additionally, I think they're referring, by the way, to the men who were like, if I can't have you, no one can, and who were adverse to being abandoned by their wife or being rejected, pretty much. Additionally, a study analyzing familicide perpetrators with a history of mental disorder found that 10% of offenders had experienced sexual and or physical child abuse. These factors combined can result in behavioral and emotional fluctuations. Make sure the men y'all talk to are out here getting therapy. Make sure they get therapy. My friend has weeded out a lot of men this way. It's a lot of people traumatized out here, but women are more likely to go to therapy and kind of work on these issues. And men kind of bottle it up and put it inside and don't do anything until they blow up and unalive somebody. So make sure the people who you're talking to are seeking help for issues that they may have had throughout their childhood. I don't think, by the way, having something happen to you in your childhood means that you are not worthy of being dated, for example. A lot of people have stuff happen to them in their childhood, especially if you're Black. But you can't carry this into your adulthood. This is not an excuse for poor behavior as an adult. So I'm not saying you can't date people who have been abused as children, because I feel like we're gonna weed out a lot of Black people generally. No gender involved. I feel like you're going to weed out a lot of Black people generally, she, he, and they. But make sure people are seeking help, or even if you can't afford therapy, for example, trying to come to terms with your feelings. Alicia's channel, where she talks about the other day being hit on and her unhealthy, my bad, I hope I'm not dragging Alicia, let me know in the comments and I will stop. But she spoke about her kind of unhealthy view on relationships and the idea that she was just getting in a relationship to be in a relationship, not necessarily for a reason. I think she might have said something like, if someone asked her to date, she would date them. And that's something she kind of had to unlearn as she grew up. That doesn't necessarily mean she went to therapy, but it might be something that she worked on internally. Just, I'm saying, someone who is, you can see progress, or you can see that they're making an effort to work on their mental health or improve or go to therapy so that they don't negatively affect the person that they're going to be with. She said something about Jamal, but I completely forgot. She was like, he did something that she was not used to experiencing in other relationship. I forgot what it was though. Yep, I forgot what it was. Sorry guys. You're just gonna have to go over there and watch it over there. Let me link to it actually. Was it ways I made myself small to make others feel big? I think this might have been it. Or was it? Yeah, this was it. I'll link this in the comments in case you guys want to watch. I think it was a good watch. And I got to see it live. How privileged I am to live in a world where I can consume such content live. Be jealous and envious of me. Anywho, speaking of therapy, this video is sponsored by BetterHelp. I can't even find a therapist. Yeah, finding a therapist was really hard for me. And then coming to New York and finding a new therapist was even more difficult because my new therapist is Latin, so I can't talk about it doesn't feel like there's the same like I don't know, like if you have a white therapist, they might diagnose you with schizophrenia or something, but if you have a black therapist, they might be like, oh yes, this is like how it does feel to be in a society where people don't like black people. Like I feel like they have a different lens through which they can view things. Not necessarily that any black therapist is going to be better for a black patient than any white therapist or any Latin therapist. I'm just saying generally, I think there might be different lensing through which they view issues that apply to black people specifically. Like I feel like it'll be less cringy. So some of these people had experienced abuse as children. These factors combined can result in behavioral and emotional fluctuations where the individual struggles to manage rage, maintain a positive self-image, empathize with others, acknowledge their trauma, and describe their feelings. This is a big one. This sounds like emotional regulation, emotional intelligence, emotional control, emotional availability. That's what it sounds like. People who cannot manage their rage and have outbursts. People who struggle to maintain a positive self-image. People who cannot empathize with others. People who can't acknowledge their own trauma, and people who can't describe their feelings. I don't necessarily think all of these are bad, by the way, or rather, I don't think these make you a bad person to experience any of these. But I do think, especially when you combine these things, and particularly with managing rage, that's the specific part that I see that's really sticking out to me, because you might struggle to maintain a positive self-image, but this doesn't make you want to go out and punch a hole in the wall, right? You're able to have some sort of discipline and self-control, some restraint. You might have difficulty empathizing with others, but this doesn't make you callous towards people. You might have difficulty acknowledging your trauma that you might have experienced, or acknowledging someone else's trauma, or describing your feelings. All I'm saying is all of these don't sound bad to me necessarily for a person to be doing. And I think I even know some people who do stuff like this. I know people who have difficulty empathizing with others. I know people who have difficulty maintaining a positive self-image or acknowledging trauma that they went through. Or describe their feelings, have difficulty articulating their feelings. I know all people like this, but those people can manage rage. Those people can manage rage. Maybe it's because we're all black. Like, I feel like if you can't manage rage as a black person, you're gonna have a hard time in the world. They don't like us. I don't know if y'all know. I don't know if y'all know or not, but the data is out. They are not feeling us. Then Tucker Carlson said, if I get on a plane and I see a black pilot, I immediately assume he's unqualified. And he's like, still has a platform, is very popular with like half of the nation. If you don't have rage management as a black person, I feel like you're gonna be in for a tough time. Such issues often contribute to regular dissociation. Mind you, again, all of this was associated with men. So even women who have difficulty maintaining positive self-image, empathizing with others, etc., even though those women exist, they still make up 4% of this study. Well, not this study. This study is 100% men, because this study says that 96% of these cases are done by men. So that's what they're going to hone in on. But still, and maybe that has something to do with the rage factor. Additionally, feelings of humiliation, negative self-image, frustration, and failure since childhood can incite depression in offenders. In combination, all of these factors increase the risk that the child will be an offender of familicide in his adulthood. So it looks like the study I was looking for is Fox and Levin, 2003, page 52. Zip it, lock it. Zip it, lock it. Oh, wow. Apparently, this looks like a study on mass shootings and likelihood to. Yeah, it looks like it links. This was looking at mass shootings particularly. The study they're referencing. In combination, all of these factors increase the risk that the child will be an offender of familicide in his adulthood. Pre-familicide trends. This is also a part I was wanting to look at, because it's important that we again identify and recognize signs of someone prior, because again, if you remember earlier in this study, a lot of these men don't have prior convictions, don't have prior history of unaliving someone or being in trouble with the legal or criminal justice system. So even if you pull up someone's record, or even if it's something obvious, right? Like we talk about Nick Cannon, and if you decide to date Nick Cannon, I feel like you should know what's going to happen. I feel like you should know what's going to happen, but it's not always obvious. So I think it's important to look at the not so obvious signs. So here are the trends. Beyond experiences of enemy, strain, and childhood trauma, other risk factors for familicides emerge among analysis of offenders. Perpetuators of familicide often reflect distant trends of psychodynamics. Let's Google that. That's a word. Psychodynamics, an approach to psychology that emphasizes systemic study of the psychological forces underlying human behavior, feelings, and emotions, and how they might relate to early experience. Psychodynamic therapy focuses primarily on unconscious processes as they are manifested in the client's present behavior. Interesting. Domestic violence and trait vulnerability that give additional insight into their psychosocial profiles. Family breakdown. A history of domestic violence was the most common risk factor in familicide cases, as 51% of familicide offenders in the US between 2000 and 2009 had previously been suspected of or charged with domestic violence. Another study analyzing familicide in 12 American cities found that only 25% of offenders had previous arrest related to domestic violence. domestic violence, including stalking, physical restraint, controlling behaviors, violent threats, and denial of separation or rejection, was most predictive of familicide when combined with other risk factors such as childhood abuse, trait vulnerability, and psychosis. Again, guys, even though this is the most likely predictor, the most common risk factor in familicide, this is still only 51%. So there's a whole another, 49%, about half. This is about half of people. So there's another half who don't have that. And then in another study, it was only 25% of people who had previous domestic violence arrest. So even though this is a pretty good indicator, right, and a pretty glaring and obvious, I think, indicator, still doesn't predict everything. Additional risk factors existing alongside domestic violence that amplify the risk of familicide include access to a gun, previous violent threats. This is one that I've been noticing a lot lately because I've been into true crime, and I've been watching all types of videos, and in a lot of these videos, the men are literally threatening their girlfriend, just straight up threatening. Keep laughing. I'm gonna knock your head between the washer and dryer. And people like just brush past it. And one in particular, I was watching a girl who was recording her boyfriend in the passenger seat. He was upset at something, and he had a gun that he was loading, and he was like, keep playing with me or something. And she, of course, was unalive shortly after the stream ended in the car. I think they were arguing because she wanted to break up or something, mind you. So previous violent threats, I don't know if people just hear this stuff and they don't take it seriously, or most likely, I think, so again, I've been into true crime lately, and I think the women in particular, because it's generally almost always women who are the recipients of these crimes, as we discussed before, I think have a level of humanity that I don't think I will ever reach in my life. I think, but ultimately, I think it's human to look at the person who you may be in love with and who you may be dating, who might have a violent past or who might have a previous conviction. I think it's human for you to ignore that. If I'm being honest with myself, I think that's extremely human. I think that's something that most people would want to believe this person's not going to do it to me. This person, he's just saying it. He's not actually going to unalive me. He's just upset right now. Like, I think a lot of people see humanity in people who don't have it. Like, you would not, I think it would be not normal for you to think that this person is about to ruin your life, ruin their life, ruin your child's life, try and go and get, people were going after their friends and family. I think it is not normal for you to think that this person would do this, that this person would go to such an extreme, because some of the reasons were like, I want to break up. One of the women was paying this man's bills and was trying to get him on his feet. He decided he don't want a job. He just want to sleep on the couch. She cut him off, and he decided that this was grounds to take her life. I don't think anyone in these relationships predicts that. I think they want to believe that he's just frustrated because I kicked him out, but he'll get on his feet and get a job eventually. Unfortunately, but no, previous violent threats are an indicator that these men are likely to unalive somebody. It is too much of a risk to take, by the way. I'm not saying I support that belief, but I'm saying I think that's what it is. I think people want to see humanity in people. I really think people don't want to believe that this person would abandon their humanity and do the worst possible scenario. So, access to a gun, previous violent threats, and extreme jealousy and or depression. These were some additional risk factors alongside with domestic violence. Extreme jealousy is what I'm looking at, DDG, because we looked at him right in the beginning. And this is the crazy part too. Again, because I've been watching a lot of true crime, it'll be men who are extremely jealous, and the whole time they are like cheating, which I don't understand. You're not even in this relationship, and you're mad at somebody for leaving you. DDG. And DDG has not committed familicide to my knowledge, or domestic violence to my knowledge, but he definitely is giving jealous and does rap about it even, while simultaneously apparently smacking Sukiana's butt. So interesting. A review of familicide literature across various different times and locations revealed repeated patterns of dissatisfaction, marital strife, possessive and controlling tendencies, as well as economic, emotional, verbal, physical, sexual, and social domestic abuse. Most offenders also threaten to hurt themselves and or others, including their spouse, if the spouse attempted to leave the offender or have extramarital relations. Marital disputes, isolation from the spouse, divorce, and custody disputes over children are other accelerants to familicide, as the offender becomes overly focused on violent behaviors as a means of stress relief. So, I used to think my best friend, I used to think she was crazy, because when she got pregnant, she cut me off. Like, she blocked me on everything. The reason why is because I didn't support the person who she was pregnant by, and I actually did not support having the child. She cut me off because it was negative. She said I was being negative, and she don't want no negativity while she is creating a life. So she blocked me for 9 months and then unblocked me like nothing happened. And I used to think she was crazy for going to such an extreme just because I expressed dissatisfaction. But the idea that something as simple as dissatisfaction is an accelerant to familicide, for example, maybe it's not an extreme. Maybe it's not an extreme for someone to hear a negative comment for a man and be like, no, I don't know about that. I don't know about that. My negative comment, by the way, is like, this is a bad decision, over and over and over again, every day. Like, this is a bad decision. I don't like this decision. She was like, you don't like it, period. 9 months. See you later. Damn. Not one message for 9 months, but we're still best friends. So most offenders also threaten to hurt themselves and or others, including their spouse, if the, we already read that part. Financial distress. Another primary motive of familicide is financial struggles, which greatly increases the risk of familicide when combined with a history of domestic violence. This is important because don't like half of marriages end because of the finances mostly. This doesn't mean that every single marriage is going to end in unaliving, obviously. Familicide as a crime compared to other violent crime is relatively rare. But that is concerning because this is like half of, all right, let me see. If it's half of marriages divorcing because of financial struggles, then it has to be more than half of, no, that's just half a divorce. Yeah, I made a mistake. That's half of divorces due to financial struggle. That doesn't necessarily mean that half of marriages have financial problems. Financial problems contribute to nearly 40% of all divorces. Took that like a shot of liquor. Okay, let's go back. However, the extent of economic influence in familicides differs across studies and populations. In the 3-decade review of all British familicide cases, financial stress was the primary motive in 29% of the cases, while 18% of familicide offenders were unemployed. In a study investigating offenders of familicide who received mental health analysis and/or treatment before their offense, 41% of the offenders were unemployed. An analysis of the correlation between the unemployment rate and familicides was found to be significant between 1976 and 2007, but additional effective factors prevent the conclusion of causation. Therefore, while economic stress is influential in the cases of familicide, other risk factors must also be taken into account when determining motive. Because someone asked, if someone could summarize what has happened so far in 3 sentences. So we've been talking about family annihilators. What are some signs? And what are some profiles of these people? How can we identify them and ideally avoid them? What is likely to predict someone doing this? This crime is a majority. This crime is committed the majority of men. I don't think I said that sentence right. 96% of men versus 4% of women. That's the gender breakdown of this crime, right? So men overwhelmingly commit this crime. This study looks at men only. It does not look at women because of that reason. They consider this a gendered crime. Well, they don't overtly say they consider it a gendered crime. Do they? I'm pretty sure they say that in like the first sentence. They say something like, because 96% is committed by men, we are solely focusing on men in this study. Not women. Like maybe it's possible, maybe they don't think it's a gendered crime. Maybe it's just not as large a data sample to pull from women. But maybe that's in there later in the study. Maybe they'll talk about that. So we've been talking about that. What we have found is men who have a history of committing DV obviously are likely to do this. Men who threaten violence towards their partner, men who threaten to hurt their partner are likely to do this. We also learned some of the profiles are eerily similar to what you might find on the average Manosphere channel. Men who believe that modern society or modern women aren't women anymore, or society, let's say, won't let men be men. That's one I hear. Men who experience struggles in the workplace or in the family. We talked about that and how men experiencing struggle is not specific to men. It's not something that men experience exclusively, but it is something that men tend to, I believe, externalize as opposed to women who don't tend to be violent, even though they would experience the same things, right? Not necessarily one for one, but people experience distress generally. However, men are likely to be violent due to that. So now we are looking at more predictors. The first predictor again was DV, a history of DV and violent threats. Additional risk were access to a gun, previous violent threats, and extreme jealousy and or depression. Now we're talking about financial distress. Be sure to like the video on your way in. Also, it helps the algorithm. But this is saying they can't draw while there is a correlation between finances and unemployment rate, for example, and familicide, and it was found to be significant, they say that there were different factors that, in conclusion, they can't prove its causation. Like they can't prove that because of financial stress, men are more likely to do this because of the other factors that it looks like they didn't control for. So they say that you have to take the other risk factors that we talked about into account. Mental illness. As early as 1806, mental health issues were thought to be a factor in familicides. Peter Edis proposed the familicide profile, quote, insanity, characterizing those diagnosed with severe mental illnesses. In an analysis of Britain familicide offenders, only 10% of the primary motives were associated with mental health problems, where half had forms of psychosis, and the other half committed honor sacrifice killings. However, analysis of offenders in the Netherlands found psychosis to account for 22% of the primary motives, while 65% of the total offender population qualified as having a personality disorder. 22% maintained substance abuse disorders, 17% mood disorders, and additional 17% psychotic disorders. This, mind you, is why I said I think it's important that y'all make sure these men that you're talking to are getting therapy or some type of help if they have issues. So I do think it's important, though, because this says only 10%, only 10% of the familicide offenders, at least from this study in Britain, was the primary motive associated with mental health problem. Now, this could mean that men are severely underdiagnosed. I believe this. I don't think men are likely to go to the doctor, much less therapy, much less a not a psychologist. What's it called? A behavioral health specialist. I'm not sure if that's what it's called, but a behavioral health doctor, right? Or a neurologist. Yeah, I think a neurologist or behavioral health, something like that. I don't think men are likely to go and get diagnosed with anything. I think a lot of men are underdiagnosed or sitting with something. I have not gone to get my ADHD, ADD. I think ADD is now just ADHD. I haven't gone to get an autism. I haven't gone to get a single thing, and I can't sit still in this chair. I can't sit still. If I haven't gone to get it, they ain't going. I don't believe they're going. So it could be that this is severely underdiagnosed, or it could be that these men are 100% in their right mind when they commit these crimes, or it could be a mixture of both. I believe it's a mixture of both. To what degree, I don't know. I believe that some of these men do have mental health issues that are unaddressed, and they have not gone to the doctor to get them addressed, nor have them identified. So you can't call them. You can't say someone has psychosis in a study if they don't have a psychosis diagnosis. You can't say that. But also, I believe some of these men are in their right mind. Do you believe every single man in the manosphere has psychosis? Do you believe every single incel has psychosis? Do you believe every single red pill, MGTOW? Do you believe every single person who believes in a lot of the ideas that we saw in this study and more like it? Do you believe every single one of them have psychosis, or even a majority of them? I don't think so. I don't think so. I could be wrong. Maybe they are all. Maybe they are. Maybe they are. I could be wrong. I just don't believe it. That would be an overwhelming number, in my opinion. But I'm not like a researcher on mental health and how much of the general population is affected by it. So some of them are just pandering. I believe they're grifting. I believe the manosphere talking heads are grifting. I absolutely believe that. The study that shows the watch list, that the men who are in the manosphere on the FBI watch list, talks about that. The idea that a lot of men are just grifting, and this is very lucrative to sell masculinity courses. Ooh, thank you for reminding me. Thank you for reminding me. How could I forget about this gem? Because I watched this masculinity course, and this man was talking about a move forward. Let's have a palate cleanser. Let's have a palate cleanser. Can I find it? Can I find it? It was like an alpha male. How do I even search this? How do I even search? Should I search alpha male camp? Alpha male course?
329. 1, 2, 3, 30. 1, 2, 3.
Let's have in the air with both hands. Like a bench press. Like a bench press.
Kill.
This is apparently very lucrative. Men will pay hundreds, if not thousands of dollars to go and have some men who don't look very, I mean, maybe you think they look manly. I don't know. They will pay many dollars to go out there and have these men yell at them and spray water and other fluids on them. It is very lucrative. I do believe, DeAndrea, they are pandering. But when it comes to the men in the audience, They are not selling anything. The men in the audience who are watching in hundreds of thousands, millions, these men aren't selling anything. They're just there consuming it and enjoying it. So I'm just saying, I don't believe all of this is, I don't believe maybe that's not what you were saying, but I don't believe that the majority of these men are like panderers or something. Panda. So, interestingly enough, mental illness was not necessarily a big predictor of this. Described in the 5th edition of the diagnostic in the DSM-5, personality disorders include antisocial personality disorder, borderline personality disorder, histrionic personality disorder. I've never heard of that one. And narcissistic personality disorder. That's from the APA. Cool. Trait vulnerabilities associated with these disorders include narcissism, emotional instability, dependency, and low self-control, which are speculated to contribute to offender victim blaming. Other trait vulnerabilities increasing the risk of perpetuating familicide include an inability to define and appropriately attribute the source of stress, differentiate between the self and others, shifting self-anger onto others, destructive tendencies, high emotional reactivity, low self-control, perceiving experiences as threats of rejection or abandonment, and extreme jealousy. Other than personality disorders and traits related to them, post-traumatic stress disorder and depression also increase vulnerability to perpetuating familicide. So this is an interesting bit. This is a lot. While they're talking about mental health, they bring up some behaviors that they believe what they're talking about seem to be narcissism, emotional instability, dependency, and low self-control. Which they seem to be relating to antisocial personality disorder, borderline personality disorder, narcissistic personality disorder, and histrionic personality disorder, the last of which I do not know what that is and have never heard of it. Well, maybe I should Google it. Let's Google histrionic personality disorder. Characterized by a pervasive pattern of attention-seeking behaviors and theatrical level of emotional reactions. Oof. Does this sound familiar? Because I'm going to keep bringing up the manosphere. We don't even have to bring up the manosphere. First of all, they bring up victim blaming. If you remember earlier in this study, one of the reasons that the men would unalive their wife and children is because they feel like their wife and children is the source of all of their stress and all of what's wrong in the relationship and the breakdown of the family unit. It's all this modern woman specifically, they mentioned, or modern ideas about relationship. Excuse me, not necessarily modern ideas around relationship. How do I word it? Modern society shifting, normalcy leaving, what they deem normalcy leaving, the breakdown of what they think is the traditional family unit. I think that was a better wording. I think that might be how they worded it actually in this study. But victim blaming, other risk, inability to define and appropriately attribute the source of stress. Again, emotional instability, a failure to regulate their emotions, a failure to identify their emotions, a failure to this sounds like emotional intelligence, by the way. This sounds like emotional intelligence. This doesn't even sound like you have to be able to deal with the emotion. That's not what's being said here. This says an inability to define and appropriately attribute the source of stress. This is about understanding your own emotions. This isn't even about dealing with it. This is just about understanding it. What's making me upset right now? What's making me stressed out right now? I don't know. Probably my wife and kids. I do believe there are a lot of men who are stressed out and they direct this stress towards women. This study seems to corroborate that. We've read other research to corroborate that. Instead of appropriately attributing the source of stress, I believe they project it onto women. The cause of all of my problems are modern women. That sounds familiar. They have difficulty differentiating between the self and others, shifting self-anger onto others, destructive tendencies, high emotional reactivity, low self-control, perceiving experiences as threats of rejection or abandonment, and extreme jealousy. Extreme jealousy. This does not sound like anything new. It sounds very familiar, actually. Other than personality disorder, they talked about PTSD. Apparently makes you more likely to do familiaricide. A history of mental illness can be difficult to deduce due to a lack of records. I'm glad they touched on that. However, most offenders previously displayed symptoms consistent with various mental illnesses. Okay, so they are suggesting actually that a lot of these men did have mental illness, but likely undiagnosed. However, they're displaying symptoms. So maybe my theory is correct, and it's just men don't go out here and get diagnosed. Additionally, because about half of familiaricide offenders complete unaliving, it is sometimes impossible to determine if the offender was mentally ill at the time of their offense. They are dead now if they self-delete. So in the Netherlands study, 44% of offenders had a documented history of mental illness and care, while only 4% had a previous record of violent criminal history. In each of the familiaricide instances, the crime was planned in advance and later linked to feelings of emotional distress. I want to point out planned in advance because this is premeditated. This is not something that happens spontaneously. I don't know if I believe in crimes of passion or like blacking. I don't know if I believe that, especially in the way that it tends to happen. Because it's not usually you walk in on something and blow up. It's usually like men who think about stuff, go to the store, get a weapon, come back. Like it's, I don't know. I don't know if I believe in that. But a lot of these are planned in advance. So when you're identifying warning signs, I think it's best not to let things get far. I think people might be waiting for something bad to happen. Like people, what is it? Red flags. That's it. I think people ignore red flags because, like we talked about earlier, I think people see the humanity in people. That's human. I think everyone does it. People see the humanity in people and refuse to believe that this red flag could mean that they're actually going to do something bad. He's over talking me on the first date. I mean, maybe he just was excited. I don't know. Maybe he was, right? People try to make sense out of it in a way that makes the other person more human. I think people try to assume, I wouldn't even say the best in someone, but just something good. I think people don't want to believe he just overtalked me because he doesn't care about me. He cares more about what he's saying than what I'm saying. He said he's only paying for the date if we have sex. Maybe he just, I don't know, maybe, right, you don't want to believe, oh, he's using this money to manipulate me, and he's a manipulative person, and he only wants this, blah, 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 blah. I think it's hard to believe that someone could be that bad. I think it's hard for a lot of people to believe that someone could just be a bad person without explanation. I mean, there's explanation, which we're reading in this story, but again, I think people ignore red flags. But these red flags can save your life. These are predictors. Unfortunately, these are predictors, and you can't necessarily assume the best in everyone. You have to look at something not through any type of rose-tinted lens, but for what it is. You have to take it at face value and don't open your third eye to try to finagle some type of explanation that is definitely not what's actually happening. This is the last one we'll read since we're coming on the 2-hour mark. I'll put the link to come up if anyone has anything to say, maybe like in the next 5-ish minutes, about anything that we talked about during the stream. You guys deserve a voice always. So I'll pin that if anyone wants to come up while I wrap this up. If not, we'll close out with a short after show, but I'll read this last paragraph. Social status and paternal expectations. Compared to family discord, economic difficulties, and psychopathy, offenders' beliefs of social status and family appearance are significantly more difficult to measure. These variables are predominantly mental, making it nearly impossible to gauge the extent of expectations maintained by now dead perpetrators or uncooperative live offenders. Additionally, the importance of family and status relative to other life factors are highly subjective, such that even if data were obtained, systemic analysis would be very difficult. Therefore, there is very little existing data collection or analysis on the influence of expected and or perceived social status and family appearance on the commission of familicide. To briefly summarize, I think they're discussing like the idea that I'm trying to think of a scenario that was recent. I remember there being, this isn't familicide in the way that this study defines it as a husband doing something to his child and or wife. But I remember there being a boy, it was a Chinese boy, and his parents had very high expectations of him because his sister was like a dropout or something, and she was like a bad girl or something out here in these streets. And he was the golden egg child, and his parents had very, very high expectations of him. And when he went to college, I think he ended up dropping out, but he pretended to go to college every day. He would leave the house and go to a coffee shop or something and just be on YouTube or playing games or something. I think he would wait for his parents to leave for work, go back to the house and chill. Once they are coming back home from work, he'd go back to the coffee shop, and then he come back to the house and walk in at like 4 or something, to where it looks like to his parents, he leaves for school in the morning and comes back from school in the afternoon. And then I think he started like pushing his graduation date out. Oh, they said the graduation is not going to be until June. They said it's not going to be until August, September, blah, 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 blah. And eventually he couldn't push it back anymore. And when his supposed graduation date was coming up, he unalived his mom, and I think his mom and dad and sister, because he was worried about this secret getting out. The expectations that his parents had from him were in the idea of not meeting that, not only not meeting that expectation, but being the exact opposite. Like, what if a man has, to relate it to familicide, what if a man has this type of image that he's a family man, a good guy, he's taking care of his wife and kids, meanwhile he's going broke. And when he can't put up that facade anymore, he might decide to unalive his family and himself instead of dealing with the consequences of not being able to keep up that image. I think that's what this paragraph specifically is discussing. But they say it is difficult to gauge. It's difficult to gauge because they unalive themselves, so you can't ask them about it. And also it's subjective. So whether or not he's failing is something for him to determine in his mind, which is difficult to measure. That's all we'll read for now. The next paragraph is about trends. The next is about trends. I think these were just getting into the perpetrator's mind. What we've been reading about is, well, we have been reading about getting into their mind, but this is specifically about how they feel after doing stuff. Like it talks about remorse, whether or not they feel remorse, whether or not they unalive. So not necessarily behavior that they do towards the wife or child. So on the next one, with that being said, thank you for joining. Please do leave a like on the video. It helps out a ton. It does feel cringy to ask that, but apparently people don't find it rude. And some people legitimately just forget to like and need to be reminded. So hopefully it does not seem like I'm begging. I can beg. I can beg. Like I have no issue with it. Please, please. My family's starving. Please. I don't know what I'm going to do if I don't get these likes. I might just have to. Never mind. That's like a joke in poor taste, considering the topic of, I won't finish that, considering the topic of today's stream. So I'm going to play my outro and we can have a brief after show to lighten the mood. Thank you for joining, by the way.
I would have been swallowed up. Have you ever been swallowed up? swallowed up? Have you ever been swallowed up? Swallowed up. Have you ever been swallowed up? Been swallowed up. Been swallowed up. Been swallowed up. Swallowed up. Have you ever been swallowed up? Swallowed up. Been swallowed up. Swallowed up. Been swallowed up. Swallowed up. Swallowed up. Swallowed. Been swallowed up. Swallowed. Swallowed up. Swallowed. Been swallowed up.
What an absolute bop. What an absolute bop. Oh, is this your first time seeing the outro? You stayed till the end, so you got to see a cool outro. Don't you feel special now? No. So we're not going to shame people who aren't subscribed because YouTube is no longer showing me who's not subscribed. It says 0% of y'all are not subscribed, which would mean 100% of you are subscribed. That doesn't make sense. I think it's like actually an error. So it no longer shows me that during the stream. I have to wait for the stream to end before I can see that, which is unfortunate. That means our shaming sessions for people who are not subscribed will unfortunately have to go away for now until they bring it back. So if you are not subscribed, I won't shame you today, but I will politely ask that you consider subscribing if you enjoy the content and would like to see more like it. And hit the bell icon or don't. I don't know how you feel about notifications, but if you're okay with it, hit the bell icon. And of course, the like button is free. So for our outro, I found something that was interesting. The Satanic Temple. Have you ever heard of it? Satanic Temple. The Satanic Temple. Apparently they had a... So let's watch it first. No, let me explain first. Apparently there's like parent-teacher conference or something. I'm not sure what this is, but I would assume it's a parent-teacher conference based on the layout. And apparently during this conference, it is not uncommon for Christian people to come up and say, glory be to God. I just want to say a prayer before I start my blah, 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 blah. Apparently that is not uncommon. Jewish and Muslim folk are missing from this conversation because it seems like they don't do stuff like that. Just Christian folk. So y'all are the focus of today. So the Satanic Church apparently wanted to make sure that we are practicing religious equality, and that they are able to also come up and say their praise to Satan and whatnot and practice religious freedom in the way that the Christians are able to. And the Christian people, well, let's watch what the Christian people did because I think it's interesting. I certainly think it's interesting. I'll pull it up now. Before he says this, thank you for the super chat, Ariel CH. Turn that bop into a full track and upload to Spotify. Sure. I will let y'all know because you sent 6, whatever those are, euros. I have no idea what currency that is. Are y'all in Europe? Is anyone watching outside of the United States? I thought we were all in New York. I'm not gonna lie. I thought every single one of y'all was in New York and one person in Texas. But thank you for the super chat. Euros. Okay, they are euros. Got it. It's been a while.
Unbowed and unfettered by arcane doctrines, born of fearful minds in darkened times. Let us embrace the Luciferian impulse to eat of the tree of knowledge and dissipate our blissful and comforting delusions of old. Let us demand the individuals be judged for their concrete actions, not their fealty to arbitrary social norms and illusory categorization. Let us reason our solutions with agnosticism in all things, holding fast only to that which is demonstrably true.
Back down, back off, back away from
Let
all
us stand firm against any and all arbitrary authority that threatens the personal sovereignty of one or of all. That which will not bend must break, and that which can be.
This is not Hereditary. This is not a movie. This is not a skit. This is a real life thing that is happening. I just want to point out, look at how many, should I say this? Look at how much they need to emulate just one Black grandmother. Look at how much they need for just a fraction of our power. For just a fraction of our power. Let there have been 5 Black women in there above the age of 55. Just 5. Just 5. Y'all know the church be coming off them hinges when Black women get in there and start praising the Lord, particularly Black women over 55. Positive vibes. Thank you for the $2. Chicago in the building. I'd like to visit Chicago. I saw I'm getting advertisements for it. I saw a thing, and it's a building that you go up in, and it just leans you over, and you watch the ground where you could fall several 100 meters below and die. So I'd like to go and see that once and then never again. Actually, I wouldn't like to go and see that. My friend would like to go and see that, and apparently I will be accompanying them. I don't have a choice. If I did, I would not be going. Thank you for the super chat. Leah, you were saying that you agree with the Christians in this video, and you kind of don't want satanic temple in your in the board meetings.
Yeah, no, I am a evangelist. I'm actually Caucasian. I'll be honest, I adore the way that the Satanic Temple trolls Christianity, specifically because if it was vice versa, they would be saying, "Oh, I was so persecuted. I felt the presence of evil."
Oh, don't worry, we're gonna watch vice versa. We're gonna see what the Satanic Temple was doing when the Christian was praying. Don't worry, we're gonna watch that right after this one.
I'm here for it. I'm here for it every time. I really despise white evangelicals, to be quite honest.
Is that why you came up, actually?
Actually, yeah, because I thought this was hilarious. I just wanted to come up and watch it and laugh.
Say no more.
To be honest, I don't like white people.
Pray.
Okay.
Which can be destroyed by truth should never be spared its demise. It is done. Hail Satan. Thank you very much. We wish everyone a wonderful evening tonight.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners.
I know that's not the Hunts Chapel AME choir. That's what it sounds like. All out of sync. I'm just playing. To anyone who goes to Hunts Chapel anywhere in the United States.
Down at the hour of our death. Amen.
Okay, that was the end of it. I can't believe how persecuted those Christians were in this video. They couldn't even speak over the man whose turn it was. Like, that's just wild how persecuted Christian people are in America, bro.
And the thing is, like, I don't know. Part of me is like, I think and I don't blame the Satanic Temple for their quote unquote antagonizing. I don't view it as antagonizing. I view it as response to Christian authoritarianism, which of course clearly is awful. Well, to me. But yeah, I think it's so interesting to see how embedded into whiteness is the persecution complex. And as part of that persecution complex, it's so tightly interwoven with religion, right? God says that we suffer. And so you not accepting me as correct means I am suffering, right? I have some issues with atheism as well. Not necessarily atheism because, I rock with it. But how white it is. But that's a different topic. I mean, I'm not part of an atheist organization. But how vocally online white it is. But that's for everything in America, right? So
everything.
Yeah.
Everything. As you said that, I was looking through the video to see were there any black people in the video actually? Because I'm looking, I'm skimming through and I'm trying to.
That's scary. That is frightening.
No, he's white. Nope. Nobody over here.
I know it's stinking there.
Not one nappity. Not the one. Oh, there. Oh, security. It looks like security's black. There's one black person right here. Okay. They're not bigoted, guys. There's one black person all the way in the back of the room. Don't worry. Totally equal. Equality of the races and such things. Period. So people seem to agree with you. The first comment says Satanic Temple leveling the playing fields. The second says the number of times we've all had to sit quietly while a person prays in public. These guys can't extend the same courtesy. The fact that they don't see the irony of not being able to sit through someone else's prayer. It's not just ironic. It's hypocritical for a group of people who are saying they are being punished for speaking up. They're not allowed to speak up. Christian prayer is one of the this is the only religion I can actually think of where it is not uncommon for someone to say a prayer in public and everyone has to be silent and listen, even if you're not like in a church or a Christian setting. The Satanic Temple, on the other hand, can't find a moment to speak because they actually are being silenced. So I always find it weird when there's a prayer before a city council meeting. Isn't there a separation of church and state? I guess now the other side gets a chance. Their reactions are so crazy and over the top. Nope, you have not seen one black grandmother. That's the problem. You have not seen one black grandmother. Had you seen one black grandmother in that room? That's how I know that black person in the back wasn't a grandmother. I could tell. Wasn't doing nothing. Nothing at all. Somebody said it's like a skit. Now let's look at the Christian prayers.
Hello, commissioners. Good to see you. God bless you all.
Dear Heavenly Father, I just thank you.
This is the same day, by the way. This is the same page we just watched. They wanted to give us a view of how the meeting was going the entire day prior to their and after their speech.
For this country, I just welcome your Holy Spirit here tonight.
I wanted to speak a little bit out of the Bible here.
Just like to read from the Word of God.
Our Father who art in heaven.
Our Father who art in heaven.
The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven.
And I just hope that everyone will feel the manifest presence of God in this room and in this building today.
There are a lot of false gods. Still are today. We heard one earlier today at the beginning of the meeting that did the invocation.
Oh, if he came up there and said Jesus is a false god, Satanic Temple doing more for personal freedom than the entire MAGA cult combined. Oop. I strongly will support the Satanic Temple for being the energy that we need in the world. As a pagan, we don't get any support like Satan Temple support. Oop. Freedom of religion as long as it's Christianity. That's why I left the Christian church. I get using your freedom of speech to give a public comment, but God is not going to fix the town's road. Maybe it was a part of his plan. Did you think of that? Maybe you were supposed to hit that pothole and turn your car over. Entire family of 4 passed away. Pothole accident. Did you perhaps think it was a part of the plan? As designed, as intended.
It was a test for the testimony later.
Oh my God, that's my favorite. He killed my whole family in a fire. It was a test of my strength. No, oh my God. Oh my, hold up. Let me see if my TikTok is still available. I think they took it down because I talked about my testimony. I talked about my testimony and they were not having it on TikTok. Viewer discretion, please. Viewer discretion is advised. My wife and child were brutally raped and murdered 3 weeks ago. And after the rapist took advantage of them, he slit their throats, and while they were still alive, doused them in gasoline, set them on fire. When I got home later that day, the entire house was burnt down. I could not even identify their bodies. I didn't know if they were home or not because I couldn't tell their bodies apart from the rubble. Everything was burnt to a crisp, blackened like charcoal. But right beside their burned, barely recognizable bodies, inside the nightstand next to our bed, do you know what I found? I opened it up and I found this Bible, completely untouched. Isn't God good? My wife. Like, can we talk about the grace? And inside the nightstand, beside his family's burned bodies, was a Bible. And when he opened it up, not a page was black. When he opened it up, not a page was burned. When he opened it up, he said, Jesus, thank you, Lord. Anyway, yeah, like, isn't God good? Won't he do it? He tested. It's a test. It's a test.
You know, that is something that I find to be so callous about Christians, and the minimizing of someone's pain when it's not like your pain. Like if you're the Christian and you're upset and you're sad, then it's like, oh, lean on the comfort of God. God will get you through. But if you're not the person who's the Christian experiencing it, then the Christian advice to you is all things go together for the, oh my God, how bad I hate that how bad I hate that verse, where it's all things come together for the good of those who love God. And when I tell you, I've had some people in my life who experienced some tragedy, and that was like the number one thing, like people were saying to comfort them. And it irks me to this day. Like that's one of the verses that I hate. And I don't even hate Christianity. I think for some people it is a comfort. Like it's all they have. Like there's someone who I was very close to who they were going through a lot after a really bad tragedy happened. And it was like they were almost on the verge of like giving up on Christianity. And I lied to everyone in my life. They all think I'm Christian. But I knew that like telling her like, yeah, no, probably not. Like the person that you love and like the God that you believe in, like didn't actually, like he's not there for you. Like he if he's there, he completely doesn't care about you, you know? That was like the wrong time to say something like that. And sometimes that's the only thing someone has to lean on, you know? And I feel like there's a level of cruelty with trying to, where I wouldn't take Christianity away from someone who's in that depth of a struggle. But I also think there's a callousness to the Christian perspective of when someone's hurting, you know? Yes, God won't put anything more on you than you can bear. And I kid you not, the person who had that advice said to them lost their firstborn child, who was an adult at the time. They lost their adult child. Firstborn passed away, was murdered actually. And it was just, the response they got from Christians was just, hey, part of God's plan. there's such a callousness to that I think is inherent to why Christianity is so popular and why it's so deeply Republican, because it's so individualized, yet also so exclusionary, right? I don't want you to live your life. I want you to live my life. But also, if you don't live the life that I want you to live, you should burn in hell, you know, figuratively and on earth. Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't always view it as malicious. Well, you didn't say malicious, but I don't always view it. Sometimes I view it through a lens of attempting to find some type of solace in the world that we live in. I remember reading a specific study about sexual assault in particular, and it was talking about women who believe in Christianity. And I think this is very unfortunate, by the way, but there are some people who think that like Snappy said in the comments, God works in mysterious ways. Someone said, he won't put on you, the Bratz doll, he won't put on you what you can't bear. There are people who believe in this stuff and are able to cope with things that happen to them because of this. I do think that's why a lot of people turn to Christianity. I don't disagree with you, though. I do think Republicans in particular, or conservative, or whatever they are, use it because it promotes hierarchy, and it promotes, I don't like your way of life, and so it's Satan, and my way of life is godly. But mostly I think it just holds up a hierarchy that they like. The man is in charge. Yeah, the man's in charge. I think they just like that. It's patriarchal, so.
Yeah.
Well, with that being said, y'all thought we were going to get out of the rest of this video? Nope.
My warning to them is this.
Yes, God.
You have no idea who you are dealing with.
Yes, God.
The terror, dread, and devilry that you invoke.
Hallelujah.
This is not fun and games.
Amen. And they don't even, if this was a black choir, why are they singing it so slow? I went to Catholic church once. I'm pretty sure I went once. It was either Catholic church or Protestant church. I have no idea. I'm going to say Protestant because I feel like Catholic would be much less common. The hymns are, when you go into black church, what I think of Kirk Franklin. I've never heard a bad Kirk Franklin song in my life. Never heard a bad one. Upbeat, it gets you pumping. People are stumping on the floor and running around. Like, it's so much energy and so much praise. Like, yes. But when I was in this Protestant church, it was just dreary and a little creepy, actually. Like, let's go back and listen to it a little bit.
Fun and games.
Tonight you have all.
I just didn't like that. I personally didn't like. It's just so. It's so low and slow, and
it sounds like a funeral song, and no one's singing in sync. It doesn't sound like a funeral to you.
No one's singing in sync. You're not talking about Hunt's Chapel AME. You're not about to talk about Hunt's Chapel. Sorry to anyone who attends a Hunt's Chapel AME anywhere in the United States. Apologies. Maybe it's a lack of seasoning. I don't know what it is. I don't know. But one thing I don't know is what I don't know. Last, we'll look at this delicious candy. This is very delicious candy. And I think we should all watch some of this delicious candy making video. They're just making this very delicious candy. It looks so good, so yummy. They don't disclose what it's made out of. It looks like taffy. It just looks so great. It's so tasty. I can't wait to eat my meal after this one. Oh yeah.
It looks like an unclogged sewage pipe.
Is that what it looks like? I'm impressed that you can make something that consistency in appearance. I have never in my life,
I wonder
never
if
in
that's
my
like
life. Have I,
Dalgona. Have you seen like Dalgona coffee and how not Dalgona coffee, like the Dalgona candy?
nope, and I don't want to. Hey, is that like a taffy? It's like a hard, crunchy.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I've seen it. I haven't. Is this that?
I don't know. It looks similar to it because it's all like
Ugh.
air bubbly. And
Yeah.
I think what makes it worse is because it's so much at once. So it just looks like, because that looks like the Dalgona coffee a little bit. I mean, candy.
Do you eat it?
I've never eaten it. I've seen it, but I've never actually eaten it.
Oh, I've never personally eaten it myself. Some of my friends eat it. I got it. Actually, here, let's end on this. This was one. I didn't know men were out here doing this, but they are. Let's watch. How do I turn the audio on? Oh.
Good night, kitten number 1. Good night, kitten number 2. Meow. Good night, kitten number 3. Meow. Good night, kitten number 4. Meow. Good night, kitten number 5. Meow. Good night, kitten number 6.
I feel like that's copyright.
Meow, 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 meow.
Good night, kitten number.
Okay. I just didn't know. I didn't know Discord mommy was out here with them like that. I didn't know this is what y'all are doing with the men these days. Is this what y'all are doing, Leah?
Yeah, it is Leah. Well, actually, technically, that's not even my name. But anyway,
what?
It's not my first name anyway. But the whole I love like YouTube videos that go through random like rabbit holes with all the weird white men who wind up like being somewhat involved with either Discord or not Reddit. I don't want to say the name of the website because I know people are weird about saying the name of that website. And like people like Christian and things like that. It's so insane. It's so unhinged and I love it. Also, it's so cringe inducing that I hate it.
Agree. Chris Chan was a rabbit hole I didn't anticipate or enjoy going down.
The knife, oh my God, the knife. Did you when he cut that hole or when that person cut that hole? Oh my God.
Anywho, that aside, would not like to bring those memories back. Thank you everyone for joining the stream. Thank you, Leah, for joining and contributing. Appreciated. 3 people subscribed during the video. Thank you. I really appreciate that. We are just 3 million away from my goal. 3 million away. Just 3 million. We're almost there. If we get 3 a day, it's going to take us about 47 years. If we just get 3 a day, we can do it in my lifetime. But thank you for subscribing. I appreciate that. And for liking the video. Well, y'all just going to be stuck on the last bit. Y'all are just going to be stuck on the last bit. So I will leave you all with Swallowed Up. Have a good Monday and a good week. Good night, everyone. Leah, final thoughts.
I love you, Black women. Keep preserving and caring about yourselves. It's always going to be focused on you and your girl children. And I guess your children in general. But yeah, shout out to us. Keep loving us. Keep doing well for us. Please ignore men and be as safe as you can. Concealed carrying is allowed depending on where you live. Love you, Black women.
Period. I know what we can actually end with. I don't have to leave you guys on that. We can rewatch this one.
Can you make any other content that's not dependent on you dating a black woman? No. Also, we're married. And if you've spent 5 seconds in the same room as that woman, that is all you would want to talk about too. Every moment I am away from her is like 1,000 Kid Rock concerts. My final breath will be her name.
I didn't realize this earlier, but also we're married is such a flex. That ain't my girlfriend, boy. That's my wife. I will give him the boy pass just once. I never like to hear that word out of white people's mouth. But I'll give him it once, just so he can say, I'm married, boy. Anywho, thank you guys for joining. Have a good night.
I would have been swallowed up. Have you ever been swallowed up? Swallowed up. Have you ever been swallowed up? Swallowed up. Have you ever been swallowed up? Been swallowed up. Been swallowed up. Been swallowed up. Swallowed up. Have you ever been swallowed up? Swallowed up. Been swallowed up. Swallowed up. Been swallowed up. Swallowed up. Swallowed up. Swallowed. Been swallowed up. Swallowed. I would have been swallowed up. Have you ever been swallowed up? Swallowed up. Have you ever been swallowed up? Swallowed up. Have you ever been swallowed up? Been swallowed up. Been swallowed up. Been swallowed up. Swallowed up. Have you ever been swallowed up? Swallowed up. Been swallowed up. Swallowed up. Been swallowed up.